Okay, guys, so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this is the PowerPoints that came with the new book. So I don't know, we'll try it. We'll try it. It's a lot of info. All right, so this first module, because now in the new book, all the chapters are broken up into modules, it's just kind of the goals as to what we're going to do. So we know that non-renewable energy is, we use it everywhere. The main things that make up non-renewable energy are fossil fuels and nuclear fuel. Those are the main two means in types of non-renewable energy resources that we use. The reason why nuclear is considered to be non-renewable is because it's since it's derived from radioactive materials, there is technically a finite amount of those on Earth, and so that's how they classify that as non-renewable. Looking at the patterns of energy use, about 5 years ago, you can see where here, out of all of the that's a lot of joules of energy that was used, fossil fuels were 81% of all of the energy used. So that's a lot. Only 14 and 5, so 19% were not, were renewable or technically the nuclear. All right, so if you take a look at this graph here shows you some kind of interesting information. So the purple line is showing you the annual total annual energy consumption, and then you have the per capita. So remember, per capita is per person. So China, as a country, they use a lot, but per capita, not so much. United States, we use a lot in total and per person. And then as you move down, look at Australia and Chile, France. They, per person, use a lot more than all in all their total energy consumption. So why do you think that that is? Well, think about what happened. What do we get a lot of from China? Manufactured goods, factories run and use a lot of energy. And so that does not play into the per capita energy usage. No, that goes into the total. Per capita is meaning like what do you use every day to charge your phone, to heat the water for your shower, and that kind of stuff. Not necessarily the businesses and things of that nature. Right. So commercial energy sources are ones that like CPS Energy, right? They help produce the electricity and provide it to customers. Subsistence energy sources is, I kind of like think of this as like I'm off the grid. Okay, like Bill Nye's off the grid. He has his subsistence energy sources. He has his own solar panels and wind turbine to kind of help him offset himself and kind of, he's, like I said, he's off the grid. So that's kind of the subsistence energy source. As you can see here in this graph, you'll see that petroleum skyrocketed. Well, what else became very popular between, say, 40s, 50s, 70s? Cars, vehicles. Okay. So automobile transportation skyrocketed during these decades here. And because of that, therefore, petroleum also did as well. Natural gas also was a big player in that. Natural gas is also very commonly, it was used a lot in like the 50s and 60s in homes to heat homes. You can see how coal kind of dipped down a little bit as natural gas became more popular for home heating. And then it kind of flip-flopped again. Kind of interesting. So United States, in 2016, so earlier we looked at what was the world. So now we're looking at the United States. we still used about 81% came from fossil fuels. So definitely the vast majority of it. And you can see how almost all of that was oil, then natural gas, and then coal. And then it also kind of breaks down how we included it within the different terms. So residential versus industrial, transportation usage was a huge amount. And then commercial. Commercial does include, like your restaurants, your local businesses, grocery stores, and then also schools. Different energy forms are best suited for specific purposes. So as we kind of said earlier, petroleum, that was the go-to fuel source for vehicles. Natural gas kind of took over from coal for heating homes and those kinds of things. Well, we can figure out how energy efficient different fuels are, and we can do that by calculating the energy return on energy investment, the EROEI. EROE. I'm just kidding. All right. And it's very easy to do. All you have to do is you divide. You divide the energy that you get from that fuel by the energy that's invested to get the fuel. So it's how much energy you get divided by how much energy you spent to get it. And then, so the larger the value of your EROEI is, the more efficient the fuel is. So here you can kind of see where in this picture, they're kind of showing you how coal, where you can lose energy throughout the processes of it being mined, refined, transported, heated, used. So wherever you see a red arrow is showing you where we're losing some energy. And that may be part of, especially like if you're talking about like the transportation of it, the moving or the extracting of it. So the machinery that is used to mine it uses energy. So you loot that, we consider that an energy loss. And that goes all along down the line. All right. So as you saw earlier, a lot of our energy in the United States is used for transportation. And so that's one reason why we think that that is something we can really focus on in terms of energy conservation and efficiency, improving that efficiency, is so that since we use it so much and everybody, so many people have their own form of transportation, can we make it where that we're not so reliant on non-renewable resources for this? Here you can see this is the megajoules per passenger per kilometer. So typically mass transit is more efficient. Okay. So typically, but when we talk about airplanes, jet fuel takes a lot of energy to produce, to refine, to transport. So just FYI there. I like the passenger car, driver alone. We're not carpooling. Overall fuel efficiency has increased. This is largely due to government, government protocols that have been pushed through, new limits that have been put in place for emissions and those kinds of things. I will be honest, it seems like a lot of it, you'll see where it kind of like dips right about here, like right about 2012. That was whenever cars, there was stipulations put in place for emissions, but then they expired. And so the efficiency actually decreased a little bit because car manufacturers didn't have to uphold as such high standards for a little bit there. But then new standards went into place, and then therefore the efficiency increased some more. It is believed, there is research out there to show that we could produce gasoline and petroleum fueled vehicles that are much more fuel efficient, but they would be more expensive. And really, because they're more expensive, and since the government isn't really pushing for that, it's just not a priority. Electricity. So electricity accounts for 40% of our energy use. That's a lot. And the good news is we can get electricity a lot of ways. We don't have to rely on non-renewable resources, but that's what we're focusing on in this chapter. So an energy carrier is something that can move and deliver energy in a convenient, usable form to end users. So energy carriers could be power lines. There's all different ways that we could do this. Sometimes they're buried, sometimes they're above us. So most of the electricity we get comes from thermal power plants. And there's a process through which whatever that original energy source was gets converted from that energy source into electricity for us to use. So we typically have a turbine, and it can be turned by things like water or steam or wind to produce power. Usually it's steam. Electrical grid, this is where you have all of those transmission lines, and that helps join the power plants together and make sure that there's an even amount of electricity being supplied to everybody. But the step-by-step is pretty simple, really. I mean, you burn fuel. As you burn the fuel, it gets hot. You're releasing that thermal energy, and that thermal energy, right? I was talking about how usually it's steam, and that steam or that hot thermal energy and that kinetic energy is then turns the blades of the turbine. As the turbine moves, the shaft in the center turns. There's a generator, and that generator, that mechanical motion of it actually moving generates electricity. And that is how we typically get electricity created from non-renewable resources. So here is a picture of, this is a coal-fired plant. All right. Now, efficiency of electricity generation. There's a couple of things here. So combined cycles. These are power plants that use both exhaust gases and steam turbines to generate electricity. So they try to reuse those exhaust gases that would already be like, say, bye-bye to the atmosphere. They try to use them and then to make it more efficient, so that way they get some use out of them instead of just going adios up to the air. The capacity, it refers to how much output that plant can create. Everyone has like a each one has a max capacity. You may have heard of like places that use cities, especially urban areas that use a lot of electricity. They may have like rolling blackouts or brownouts, and they schedule these to help prevent from plants, having to be used at max capacity for long periods of time. The capacity factor is the fraction of time a power operates per year. And so again, rolling blackouts, brownouts, they're one of the reasons why they try to implement those occasionally when and if needed, is to prevent long periods of time of high use. Cogeneration it's kind of a cool concept. This is where you use that same fuel to do two things. Because it's getting hot, so why not use it for creating heat and electricity? So that's all cogeneration is, because the prefix co means two, together. So we can use the steam for heating, like as in radiating type scenario, like radiators and stuff, or like floor heating, but also to help us create electricity. It is definitely much more efficient. All right, we're going to move on to module 5 in the next one.